Good evening, my friends. It's Indiana Holmes, and we continue our book, The Phantom of the Opera, this evening. We begin with Chapter 8, The Mysterious Brome. That tragic evening was bad for everybody. Carlotta fell ill. As for Christine Daae, she disappeared after the performance. A fortnight elapsed during which she was seen neither at the opera nor outside. Raoul, of course, was the first to be astonished at the prima donna's absence. He wrote to her at Madame Valerius's flat and received no reply. His grief increased, and he ended up being seriously alarmed at never seeing her name on the program. Faust was played without her. One afternoon he went to the manager's office to ask the reason of Christine's disappearance. He found them both looking extremely worried. Their own friends did not recognize him. They had lost all their gaiety and spirits. They were seen crossing the stage with hanging heads, careworn brows, pale cheeks, as though pursued by some abominable thought or a prey to some persistent sport of fate. The fall of the chandelier had involved them in no little responsibility, but it was difficult to make them speak about it. The inquest had ended in a verdict of accidental death, caused by the wear and tear of the chains by which the chandelier was hung from the ceiling, but it was the duty of both the old and the new managers to have discovered this wear and tear and to have remedied it in time. And I feel bound to say that Messieurs Richard and Montcharmin, at this time, appeared so changed, so absent-minded, so mysterious, so incomprehensible, that many of the subscribers thought that some event even more horrible than the fall of the chandelier must have affected their state of mind. In their daily intercourse, they showed themselves very impatient, except for Monsieur Giry. Except for Madame Giry, who had been reinstated in her functions, and their exception, or should I say their reception, of the Vicomte de Chagny, when he came to ask about Christine, was anything but cordial. They merely told him that she was taking a holiday. He asked how long the holiday was for, and they replied curtly that it was for an unlimited period, as Mademoiselle Daae had requested leave of absence for reasons of health. "Then she is ill," he cried. "What is the matter with her?" "We don't know." "Didn't you send her to the doctor of the opera to see her?" "No, she did not ask for him, and we trust her. We took her word." Raoul left the building, a prey to the gloomiest thoughts. He resolved, come what may, to go and inquire of Mamma Valerius. He remembered the strong phrases in Christine's letter forbidding him to make any attempt to see her, but what he had seen at Perros, what he had heard behind the dressing-room door, his conversation with Christine at the edge of the moor, made him suspect some machination which, devilish though it might be, was none the less human. The girl's highly strung imagination, her affectionate and credulous mind, the primitive education which had surrounded her childhood with a circle of legends, the constant brooding over her dead father, and above all, the state of sublime ecstasy into which music threw her from the moment that this art was made manifest in certain exceptional conditions, as in the churchyard at Perros. All this seemed to him to constitute a moral ground only too favorable for the malevolent designs of some mysterious and unscrupulous person, of whom was Christine Daae the victim. This was the very reasonable question which Raoul put to himself as he hurried off to Mamma Valerius. He trembled as he rang the little flat in the Rue Notre-Dame des Victoires. The door was opened by the maid whom he had seen coming out of Christine Daae's dressing-room one evening. He asked if he could speak to Mademoiselle Valerius. He was told that she was ill in bed and was not receiving visitors. "Take in my card, please," he said. The maid soon returned and showed him into a small and scantily furnished drawing-room, in which portraits of Professor Valerius and old Daae hung on opposite walls. Madame begs Monsieur le Vicomte to excuse her," said the servant. "She can only see him in her bedroom because she can no longer stand on her poor legs." 5 minutes later, Raoul was ushered into an ill-lit room where he at once recognized the good, kind face of Christine's benefactress in the semi-darkness of an alcove. Mamma Valerius's hair was now quite white, but her eyes had grown no older. Never, on the contrary, had their expression been so bright, so pure, so childlike. "Monsieur de Chagny," she cried gaily, putting out both her hands to her visitor. "Ah, it's heaven that sends you here. We can talk of her." The last sentence sounded very gloomily in the young man's ears. He at once asked, "Madame, where is Christine?" And the old lady replied calmly, "She is with her good genius." "What good genius?" exclaimed poor Raoul. "Why, the angel of music." The Viscount dropped into a chair. Really? Christine was with the angel of music? And there lay Mamma Valerius in bed, smiling to him and putting her finger to her lips to warn him to be silent. And she added, "You must not tell anybody." "You can rely on me," said Raoul. He hardly knew what she was saying, for his ideas about Christine, already greatly confused, were becoming more and more entangled, and it seemed as if everything was beginning to turn around him, around the room, around that extraordinarily good lady with the white hair and the forget-me-not eyes. I know I can," she said, with a happy laugh. "But why don't you come near me, as you used to do when you were a little boy? Give me your hands, as when you brought me the story of little Lottie, which Daddy Day had told you. I am very fond of you, Monsieur Raoul. You know, and so is Christine, too." "She is fond of me?" sighed the young man. He found a difficulty in collecting his thoughts and bringing them to bear on Mamma Valerius's good genius, on the angel of music, of whom Christine had spoken to him so strangely, on the death's head, which he had seen in a sort of nightmare on the high altar at Paros, and also on the opera ghost, whose fame had come to his ears one evening when he was standing behind the scenes, within hearing of a group of scene-shifters who were repeating the ghastly description which hanged man Joseph Buquet had given the ghost before his mysterious death. He asked in a low voice, "What makes you think that Christine is fond of me, madame?" "She used to speak of you every day." "Really? And what did she tell you?" "She told me you had made her a proposal." And the good old lady began laughing wholeheartedly. Raoul sprang from his chair, flushing at the temples, suffering agonies. "What's this? Where are you going? Sit down again, at once, will you? Do you think I will let you go like that? If you're angry with me for laughing, I beg your pardon. After all, what has happened isn't your fault. Didn't you know? Did you think that Christine was free? Is Christine engaged to be married?" the wretched Raoul asked, in a choking voice. "Why, no. Why, no. You know as well as I do that Christine couldn't marry, even if she wanted to. But I don't know anything about it. And why can't Christine marry? Because the angel of music, of course. I don't follow. He forbids her to. He forbids her to? The angel of music forbids her to marry?" "Oh, he forbids her, without forbidding her. It's like this. He tells her that if she got married, she would never hear him again, that's all, and that he would go away forever. So you understand, she can't let the angel of music go. It's quite natural." Yes, echoed Raoul submissively. "It's quite natural. Besides, I thought Christine had told you all that when she met you at Paros, where she went with her good genius." "Oh, she went to Paris with her good genius, did she?" "That is to say, he arranged to meet her down there in Paros churchyard at Day's grave. He promised to play her the Resurrection of Lazarus on her father's violin." Raoul de Chagny rose and, with a very authoritative air, pronounced these premonitory words: "Madam, you will have the goodness to tell me where that genius lives." The old lady did not seem surprised at this indiscreet command. She raised her eyes and said, in heaven. Such simplicity baffled him. He did not know what to say in the presence of this candid and perfect faith in a genius who came down nightly from heaven to haunt the dressing rooms at the opera. He now realized the possible state of mind of a girl brought up between a superstitious fiddler and a visionary old lady, and he shuddered when he thought of the consequences of it all. "Is Christine still a good girl?" he asked suddenly, in spite of himself. "I swear it, as I hope to be saved," exclaimed the old woman, who this time seemed to be incensed. "And if you doubt it, sir, I don't know what you are here for." Raoul tore at his gloves. How long has she been in this? How long has she known this genius? About 3 months. Yes, it's been quite 3 months since she began her lessons with him. The Viscount threw up his arms with a gesture of despair. "The genius gives her lessons. And where?" "Now that she has gone away with him, I can't say. But up to a fortnight ago, it was Christine Daae's dressing room. It would be impossible in this little flat. The whole house would hear them. Whereas at the opera, at 8 o'clock in the morning, there is no one about. Do you see?" "Yes, I see," cried the Viscount, and hurriedly took leave of Madame Valerius, who asked herself if the young nobleman was not a little off his head. He walked home to his brother's house in a pitiful state. He could have struck himself, banged his head against the walls. To think that he believed in her innocence, in her purity, the angel of music. He knew him now. He saw him. It was beyond a doubt some unspeakable terror, a good-looking jackanapes who mouthed and simpered as he sang. He thought himself as absurd and as wretched as he could be. Oh, what a miserable, little, insignificant, silly young man was Monsieur le Vicomte de Chagny, thought Raoul furiously. And she, what a bold and damnable, sly creature. His brother was waiting for him, and Raoul fell into his arms. Like a child, the Count consoled him, without asking for explanations, and Raoul would certainly have long hesitated before telling him the story of the Angel of Music. His brother suggested taking him out to dinner. Overcome as he was with despair, Raoul probably would have refused any invitation that evening, if the Count had not, as the inducement told him, that the lady of his thoughts had been seen the night before in the company of the other sex in Blois. At first the Viscount refused to believe, but he received such extract and exact details that he ceased protesting. She had been seen, it appeared, driving in a brougham with a window down. She seemed to be slowly taking in the icy air. There was a glorious moon shining. She was recognized beyond doubt. As for her companion, only his shadowy outline was distinguished, leaning back in the dark. The carriage was going at a walking's pace in a lonely drive behind the grand stand of Longchamp. Raoul dressed in frantic haste, prepared to forget his distress by flinging himself, as people say, into the vortex of pleasure. Alas, he was very sorry, and a very sorry guest, leaving his brother early, who found himself by 10 o'clock in the evening in a cab behind the Longchamp racecourse. It was bitterly cold. The road seemed deserted and very bright under the moonlight. He told the driver to wait for him patiently at the corner, and of a near turning and hiding himself as well as he could, stood stamping his feet to keep warm. He had been indulging in this healthy exercise for half an hour or so when a carriage turned the corner of the road and came quietly in his direction at a walking pace. As it approached, he saw that a woman was leaning her head from the window, and suddenly the moon shed a pale gleam over her features. Christine! The sacred name of his love had sprung from his heart and his lips. He could not keep it back. He would have given anything to withdraw it, for that name proclaimed the stillness of the night, had acted as though it were a preconcerted signal for a furious rush on part of the whole turnout. which dashed him before he could put into execution his plan of leaping at the horses' heads. The carriage window had been closed and the girl's face had disappeared, and the brougham behind it, which he was now running, was no more than a black spot on a white road. He called out again, "Christine!" No reply, and he stopped in mid-sentence. With a lackluster eye, he stared down that cold, desolate road and into the pale, dead night. Nothing was colder than his heart. Nothing half so dead. He had loved an angel, and now he despised a woman. Raoul, how little fairy of the north was trifled with you. Was it really necessary to have so fresh and young a face, a forehead so shy and always ready to cover itself with the pink brush of modesty in order to pass in the lonely night in a carriage and pair accompanied by a mysterious lover? Surely there would be some limit to hypocrisy and lying. She passed without answering his cry, and he was thinking of dying, and he was 20 years old. His valet found him in the morning sitting on his bed. He had not undressed, and the servant feared, at the sight of his face, that some disaster had occurred. Raoul snatched his letters from the man's hands. He had recognized Christine's paper and handwriting. She said, "Dear, go to the masked ball at the opera on the night after tomorrow at 12 o'clock and be in the little room behind the chimney place of the big crush room. Stand near the door that leads to the rotunda. Don't mention this appointment to anyone on earth. Wear a white domino and be carefully masked. As you love me, do not let yourself be recognized." Chapter 9. At the Masked Ball. The envelope was covered with mud and unstamped. It bore the words, "To be handed to Monsieur le Vicomte Raoul de Chagny," with the address in pencil. It must have been flung out in the hope that a passer-by would pick up the note and deliver it, which was what happened. The note had been picked up on the pavement of the Place de l'Opéra. Raoul read it over and over again with fevered eyes. No more was needed to revive his hope. The somber picture which he had for a moment imagined of Christine forgetting her duty to herself made way for his original conception of the unfortunate innocent child, the victim of imprudence and exaggerated sensibility. To what extent at this time was she really a victim? Whose prisoner was she? Into what whirlpool had she been dragged? He asked himself these questions with a cruel anguish, but even this pain seemed endurable beside the frenzy into which he was thrown at the thought of a lying and deceitful Christine. What had happened? What influence had she undergone? What monster had carried her off, and by what means? What means, indeed, but that of music? He knew Christine's story. After her death, she acquired a distaste of everything in life, including her art. She went through the conservatory like a poor soulless singing machine, and suddenly she awoke as though through an intervention of God. The angel of music appeared upon the scene. She sang Margarita in Faust and triumphed. The angel of music. For 3 months the angel of music had been giving Christine lessons. Ah, he was a punctual singing master. And now he was taking her for drives in the Bois. Raoul's fingers clutched at his flesh. Above his jealous heart, in his inexperience, he now asked himself with terror what game the girl was playing. Up to what point could an opera singer make a fool of a good-natured young man, quite new to love? Oh, misery! Thus did Raoul's thoughts fly from one extreme to the other. He no longer knew whether to pity Christine or to curse her, and he pitied and cursed her turn and turn about. At all events, he bought a white domino. The hour of appointment came at last. With his face in a mask, trimmed with long, thick lace, looking like a Pierrot in his white wrap, the Viscount thought himself very ridiculous. Men of the world do not go to the opera ball in fancy dress. It was absurd. One thought, however, consoled the Viscount. He would certainly never be recognized. This ball was an exceptional affair, given some time before Shrovetide, in honor of the anniversary of the birth of a famous draftsman, and it was expected to be much gayer, noisier, and more bohemian than the ordinary masked ball. Numbers of artists had arranged to go, accompanied by a whole cohort of models and pupils, who by midnight began to create a tremendous din. Raoul climbed the grand staircase at 5 minutes to 12, did not linger to look at the motley dresses displayed all the way up the marble steps, one of the richest settings in the world, allowed no facetious mask to draw him into a war of wits, replied to no jests, and shook off the bold familiarity of a number of couples who had already become a trifle too gay. Crossing the big crush room, and escaping from the mad whirl of dancers in which he was caught for a moment, he at last entered the room mentioned in Christine's letter. He found it crammed for a small space, was the point where all of those were going to supper in the rotunda, and crossed those who were returning from taking a glass of champagne. The fun here waxed fast and furious. Raoul leaned against a door post and waited. He did not wait long. A black domino passed and gave a quick squeeze to the tips of his fingers. He understood that it was she and followed her. "Is that you, Christine?" he asked between his teeth. The black domino turned round promptly and raised her finger to her lips, no doubt to warn him not to mention her name again. Raoul continued to follow her in silence. He was afraid of losing her after meeting her again in such strange circumstances. His grudge against her was gone. He no longer doubted that she had nothing to reproach herself with, however peculiar and inexplicable her conduct might seem. He was ready to make any display of clemency, forgiveness, or cowardice. He was in love, and no doubt he would soon receive a very natural explanation of her curious absence. The black domino turned back from time to time to see if the white domino was still following. As Raoul once more passed through the great crush room, this time in the wake of his guide, he could not help noticing a group crowding round a person whose disguise, eccentric air, and gruesome appearance were causing sensation. It was a man dressed all in scarlet, with a huge hat and feathers, on top of a wonderful death's head mask. From his shoulders hung an immense red velvet cloak, which trailed along the floor like a king's train, and on his cloak was embroidered in gold letters, which everyone read and repeated aloud: "Don't touch me. I am Red Death, stalking abroad." Then one, greatly daring, did try to touch him, but a skeleton hand shot out from the crimson sleeve and violently seized the rash one's wrist, and he, feeling the clutch of the knuckle bones and furious grasp of death, uttered a cry of pain and terror. When the Red Death released him at last, he ran away like a very madman, pursued by the jeers of the bystanders. It was at this moment that Raoul passed in front of the funeral masquerader, who had just happened to turn in his direction, and he nearly exclaimed, "The death head of Perros Guirec!" He had recognized him. He wanted to dart forward, forgetting Christine, but the black domino, who also seemed to pray to some strange extent, caught him by the arm and dragged him from the crush room, far from the mad crowd through which the Red Death was stalking. The black domino kept on turning back, and apparently on 2 occasions saw something that startled her, for she hurried her pace, and Raoul's, as though they were being pursued. They went up 2 floors. Here the stairs and corridors were mostly deserted. The black domino opened the door of a private box and beckoned to the white domino to follow her. Then Christine, whom he recognized by the sound of her voice, closed the door behind them and warned him, in a whisper, to remain at the back of the box and on no account to show himself. Raoul took off his mask. Christine kept hers on, and when Raoul was about to ask her to remove it, he was surprised to see her put her ear to the partition and listen eagerly for a sound outside. Then she opened the door ajar, looked out into the corridor, and in a low voice said, "He must have gone up higher." Suddenly she exclaimed, "He is coming down again." She tried to close the door, but Raoul prevented her, for he had seen, on the top step of the staircase that led to the floor above, a red foot, followed by another, and slowly, majestically, the whole scarlet dress of the Red Death met his eyes, and he once more saw the death's head of Paris Guirec. "It is he!" he exclaimed. "This time he shall not escape me." But Christine had slammed the door at the moment when Raoul was on the point of rushing out. He tried to push her aside. "Whom do you mean by he?" she asked, in a changed voice. "Who shall not escape you?" Raoul tried to overcome the girl's resistance by force, but she repelled him with a strength which he could not have suspected in her. He understood, or thought he understood, and at once lost his temper. "Who?" he repeated angrily. "Why, he, the man who hides behind the hideous mask of death, the evil genius of the churchyard at Paros, Red Death, in a word, madame, your friend, your angel of music. But I shall snatch off his mask, as I shall snatch off my own, and this time we shall look at each other in the face, he and I, with no veil, no lies between us, and I shall know whom you love and whom loves you." He burst into a mad laugh, while Christine gave a disconsolate moan behind her velvet mask. With a tragic gesture, she flung out her 2 arms, which fixed a barrier of white flesh against the door. "In the name of our love, Raoul, you shall not pass." He stopped. What had she said? In the name of their love? Never before had she confessed she had loved him, and yet she had opportunities enough. Pooh! Her only object was to gain a few seconds. She wished to give the Red Death time to escape, and in accents of childless hatred, he said, "You lie, madame, for you do not love me, and you have never loved me. What a poor fellow I must be to let you mock and flout me as you have done. Why did you give me every reason of hope at Paros? For honest hope, madame, for I am an honest man, and I believed you to be an honest woman, when your only intention was to deceive me. Alas, you have deceived us all. You have taken a shameful advantage of your candid affection, of your beneficiaries, who continue to believe in your sincerity while you go about the opera ball with Red Death. I despise you." And he burst into tears. She allowed him to insult her. She thought of but one thing, to keep him from leaving the box. "You will beg my pardon one day for all those ugly words, Raoul, and when you do, I shall forgive you." He shook his head. "No, no, you have driven me mad when I think that I had only one object in life, to give my name to an opera wench. Raoul, how can you? I shall die of shame." "Oh dear, live," said Christine's grave and changed voice. "And goodbye, goodbye, Raoul." The boy stepped forward, staggering as he went. He risked more sarcasm. "Oh, you must let me come and applaud you from time to time. I shall never sing again, Raoul. Really? He replied, still more sarcastically. So he is taking you off the stage? I congratulate you, but we shall meet in Bois one of these evenings. Not in Bois, nor anywhere, Raoul. You shall not see me again. May one ask at least to what darkness you are returning? For what hell are you leaving, mysterious lady, or for what paradise? I came to tell you, dear, but I can't tell you now. You would not believe me. You have lost faith in me. Raoul, it is finished. She spoke in such a despairing voice that the lad began to feel remorse for his cruelty. But look here, he cried, can't you tell me what all this means? You are free. There is no one to interfere with you. You go about Paris. You put on a domino to come to the ball. Why do you not go home? What have you been doing this past fortnight? What is this tale about the angel of music, which you have been telling Mamma Valerius about? Someone may have taken you in, played upon your innocence. I was a witness of it myself at Paros. But you know what to believe now. You seem to me quite sensible, Christine. You know what you are doing, and meanwhile Mamma Valerius lies waiting for you at home and appealing to your good genius. Explain yourself, Christine, I beg of you. And one might have been deceived as I was. What is this farce? Christine simply took off her mask and said, Dear, it is a tragedy. Raoul now saw her face and could not restrain an exclamation of surprise and terror. The fresh complexion of former days was gone. A mortal pallor covered those features, which he had known so charming and so gentle, and sorrow had furrowed them with pitiless lines and traced dark and unspeakable sad shadows under her eyes. My dearest, he moaned, holding out his arms. You promised to forgive me. Perhaps, someday, perhaps, she said, resuming her mask, and she went away, forbidding him with a gesture to follow her. He tried to disobey her, but she turned round and repeated the gesture of farewell with such authority that he dared not move a step. He watched her till she was out of sight. Then he went down among the crowd, hardly knowing what he was doing, without throbbing temples, an aching heart, and as he crossed the dancing floor, he asked if anybody had seen Red Death. Yes, everyone had seen Red Death, but Raoul could not find him, and at 2 o'clock in the morning he turned down the passage behind the scenes and led to Christine Day's dressing room. His footsteps took him to that room where he had first known suffering. He tapped at the door. There was no answer. He entered as he had entered when he looked everywhere for the man's voice. The room was empty. The gas jet was burning, turned down low. He saw some writing paper on a little desk. He thought of writing to Christine, but heard steps in the passage. He had only time to hide in the inner room, which was separated from the dressing room by a curtain. Christine entered, took off her mask with a weary movement, and flung it on the table. She sighed and let her pretty head fall into her two hands. What was she thinking of? Of Raoul? No, for Raoul heard her murmur, Poor Eric. At first he thought he must be mistaken. To begin with, he was persuaded that if anyone was to be pitied, it was he, Raoul. It would have been quite natural if she had said, Poor Raoul, after what had happened between them, but shaking her head, she repeated, Poor Eric. What had this Eric to do with Christine's sighs? And why was she pitying Eric when Raoul was so unhappy? Christine began to write, deliberately, calmly, and so placidly that Raoul, who was still trembling from the effects of the tragedy that separated them, was painfully impressed. What coolness, he said to himself. She wrote on, filling 2, 3, 4 sheets. Suddenly she raised her head and hid the sheets in her bodice. She seemed to be listening. Raoul also listened. Whence came that strange sound? That distant rhythm? A faint singing seemed to issue from the walls. Yes, it was as though the walls themselves were singing. The song became plainer. The words were now distinguishable. He heard a voice, a very beautiful, very soft, very captivating voice. But for all its softness, it remained a male voice. The voice came nearer and nearer. It came through the wall. It approached. And in the voice was in the room, in front of Christine. Christine rose and addressed the voice, as though speaking to someone. "Here I am, Eric," she said. "I am ready, but you are late." Raoul, peeping from behind the curtain, could not believe his eyes, which showed him nothing. Christine's face lit up. A smile of happiness appeared upon her bloodless lips, a smile that of sick people when they receive the first hope of recovery. The voice without a body went on singing, and certainly Raoul had never in his life heard anything more absolutely and heroically sweet, more gloriously insidious, more delicate, more powerful, in short, more irresistibly triumphant. He listened to it in a fever, and he now began to understand how Christine Daae was able to appear one evening before the stupefied audience with accents of a beauty hitherto unknown, of a superhuman exaltation, while doubtless still under the influence of the mysterious and invisible master. The voice was singing the wedding night song from Romeo and Juliet. Raoul saw Christine stretch out her arms to the voice as she had done in Paros churchyard, to the invisible violin playing the resurrection of Lazarus, and nothing could describe the passion with which the voice sang. "Fate links thee to me forever and a day." The strange went through Raoul's heart, struggling against the charm that seemed to deprive him of all his will and all his energy, and of almost all his lucidity. At the moment when he needed them most, he succeeded in drawing back the curtain that hid him, and he walked to where Christine stood. She herself was moving to the back of the room, the whole wall of which was occupied by a great mirror that reflected her image, but not his, for he was just behind her and entirely covered by her. "Fate links thee to me forever and a day." Christine walked toward her image in the glass, and the image came toward her. The two Christines, the real one and the reflection, ended by touching, and Raoul put his arms to clasp, and two in one embrace. But by a sort of dazzling miracle that sent him staggering, Raoul was suddenly flung back, while an icy blast swept over his face. He saw not 2, but 4, 8, 20 Christines spinning round him, laughing at him, and fleeing him so swiftly that he could not touch one of them. At last everything stood still again, and he saw himself in the glass, but Christine had disappeared. He rushed up to the glass. He struck it at the walls. Nobody, and meanwhile the room still echoed with a distant, passionate singing. "Fate links thee to me forever and a day." Which way had Christine gone? Which way would she return? Would she return? Alas, had she not declared to him that everything was finished? And was the voice not repeating, "Fate links thee to me forever and a day"? To me, to whom? Then, worn out, beaten, empty, brained, he sat down on the chair with Christine, or where Christine had just left. Like her, he let his head fall into his hands. When he raised it, the tears were streaming down his young cheeks, real, heavy tears like those which jealous children shed, tears that wept for a sorrow which was in no way fanciful, but which is common to all the lovers of the earth, and which expressed aloud, "Who is this Eric?" Chapter 10. Chapter 10. Forget the name of the man's voice. The day after Christine had vanished before his eyes, in a sort of dazzlement that still made him doubt the evidence of his senses, Monsieur le Vicomte de Chagny called to inquire at Mamma Valerius's. He came upon a charming picture. Christine herself was seated by the bedside of the old lady, who was sitting up against the pillows, knitting. The pink and white had returned to the young girl's cheeks. The dark rings round her eyes had disappeared. Raoul no longer recognized the tragic face of the day before. If the veil of melancholy over those adorable features had not still appeared to the young man as the last trace of the weird drama in whose toils that mysterious child was struggling, he could have believed that Christine was not its heroine at all. She rose without showing any emotion and offered him her hand. But Raoul's stupefaction was so great that he stood there dumbfounded, without a gesture, without a word. "Well, Monsieur de Chagny," exclaimed Mamma Valerius, "don't you know our Christine? Her good genius has sent her back to us." "Mamma," the girl broke in promptly, while a deep blush mantled to her eyes, "I thought, Mamma, that there was to be no more question of that. You know, there is no such thing as the angel of music. But, child, he gave you lessons for 3 months. Mamma, I have promised to explain everything to you one of these days, and I hope to do so, but you have promised me, until that day, to be silent and ask me no more questions whatever. Provided that you promise never to leave me again, but you have promised that, Christine." "Mamma, all this cannot interest Monsieur de Chagny." "On the contrary, mademoiselle," said the young man, in a voice which he tried to make firm and brave, but which still trembled, "anything that concerns you interests me to an extent which perhaps you will one day understand. I do not deny that my surprise equals my pleasure at finding you with your adopted mother, and that, after what happened between us yesterday, after what you said and what I was able to guess, I hardly expected to see you here so soon. I should be the first to delight at your return, if you were not so bent on preserving a secrecy that may be fatal to you. And I have been your friend too long not to be alarmed with Madame Valerius at the disastrous adventure, which will remain dangerous so long as we have not unraveled its threads, and of which you will certainly end by being the victim, Christine." At these words, Mamma Valerius tossed about in her bed. "What does this mean?" she cried. "Is Christine in danger?" "Yes, madame," said Raoul courageously, notwithstanding the signs which Christine made to him. "My God!" exclaimed the good, simple old woman, gasping for breath. "You must tell me everything, Christine. Why did you try to reassure me? And what danger is it that Monsieur Chagny is speaking of?" "An impostor is abusing her good faith." "Is the angel of music an impostor?" "She told you herself that there is no angel of music. But then what is it? In heaven's name, you will be the death of me." "There is a terrible mystery around us, madame, around you, around Christine, a mystery much more to be feared than any number of ghosts or genii." Mamma Valerius turned a terrified face to Christine, who had already run to her adopted mother and was holding her in her arms. "Don't believe him, mummy, don't believe him," she repeated. "Then tell me that you will never leave me again," implored the widow. Christine was silent, and Raoul resumed. "That is what you must promise, Christine. It is the only thing that can reassure your mother and me. We will undertake not to ask you a single question about the past." if you promise us to remain under our protection in future. That is an undertaking which I have not asked of you, and promise which I refuse to make to you," said the young girl haughtily. I am mistress of my own actions, Monsieur de Chagny. You have no right to control them, and I will beg you to detest henceforth. As to what I have done during the last fortnight, there is only one man in the world who has the right to demand an account of me, my husband. Well, I have no husband, and I never mean to marry." She threw out her hands to emphasize her words, and Raoul turned pale, not only because the words which he had heard, but because he had caught sight of a plain gold ring on Christine's finger. "You have no husband, and yet you wear a wedding ring." He tried to seize her hand, but she swiftly drew it back. "That is a present," she said, blushing once more and vainly striving to hide her embarrassment. "Christine, as you have no husband, that ring can only have been given to you by one who hopes to make you his wife. Why deceive us further? Why torture me still more? That ring is a promise, and that promise has been accepted." "That's what I said," exclaimed the old lady. "And what did she answer, madame?" "What I chose," said Christine, driven to exasperation. "Don't you think, monsieur, that this cross-examination has lasted long enough? As far as I'm concerned—" Raoul was afraid to let her finish her speech. He interrupted her. "I beg your pardon for speaking as I did, mademoiselle. You know, the good intentions that make me meddle just now in matters which you no doubt think have nothing to do with me. But allow me to tell you what I have seen, and I have seen more than you suspect, Christine, or what I thought I saw. For, tell you the truth, I have sometimes been inclined to doubt the evidence of my eyes. Well, what did you see, sir? Or what did you think you saw?" "I saw your ecstasy at the sound of the voice, Christine, the voice that came from the wall or next to the room to yours. Yes, your ecstasy, and that is what makes me alarmed on your behalf. You are under a very dangerous spell, and yet it seems that you are aware of the imposture, because you say today that there is no angel of music. In that case, Christine, why did you follow him that time? Why did you stand up with radiant features, as though you were really hearing angels? As it is a very dangerous voice, Christine, for I myself have heard it, was so much fascinated by it, that you vanished before my eyes without my seeing which way you passed. Christine, Christine, in the name of heaven, in the name of your Father who is in heaven now, and who you loved so dearly, and who loved me too, Christine, tell us, tell your benefactress and me, to whom does that voice belong? If you do, we will save you in spite of yourself. Come, Christine, the name of the man who had the audacity to put a ring on your finger." "Monsieur de Chagny," the girl declared coldly, "you shall never know." Thereupon, seeing the hostility with which her ward had been addressed, the Viscount, Mamma Valerius, suddenly took Christine's part. "And if she does not love that man, Monsieur Vicomte, even then it is no business of yours." "Alas, madame," Raoul humbly replied, unable to restrain his tears, "alas, I believe Christine really does love him. But it is not only that which drives me to despair. For what I am certain of, madame, is the man whom Christine loves is worthy of her." "It is for me to be the judge of that, monsieur," said Christine, looking at Raoul angrily. "When a man," continued Raoul, "adopts such romantic methods to entice a young girl's affections, the man must either be a villain or a girl a fool. Is that it? Christine!" "Raoul, why do you condemn a man whom you have never met, whom no one knows, and about whom you yourself know nothing?" "Yes, Christine, yes. I at least know the name that you thought to keep from me forever. The name of your angel of music, mademoiselle, is Eric." Christine at once betrayed herself. She turned as white as a sheet and stammered, "Who told you?" "You yourself." "How do you mean?" "By pitying him the other night." the night of the masked ball, when you went to your dressing room, did you not say, poor Eric? Well, Christine, there was a poor Raoul who overheard you. This is the second time that you have listened behind the door, Monsieur de Chagny. I was not behind the door. I was in the dressing room. In the inner room, mademoiselle. Oh, unhappy man, moaned the girl, showing every sign of unspeakable terror. Unhappy man, do you want to be killed? Perhaps. Raoul uttered this perhaps with so much love and despair in his voice that Christine could not keep back a sob. She took his hands and looked at him with all the pure affection of which she was capable. Raoul, she said, forget the man's voice, and do not even remember its name. You must never try to fathom the mystery of the man's voice. If the mystery is so terrible, is it so terrible? There is no more awful mystery on this earth. Swear to me that you will never ever make an attempt to find out, she insisted. Swear to me that you will never come to my dressing room unless I send for you. Then you promise to send for me sometimes, Christine. I promise. When? Tomorrow. Then I swear to do as you asked. He kissed her hands and went away, cursing Eric and resolving to be patient. And that, my friends, is the end of our story for this evening. We will continue again tomorrow night. Thank you very much for listening and watching. Love to you all. This has been Indiana Homes. Good night.
Please hit the like button, subscribe, and hit the notifications button. Thank you very much.